This video is on piecewise functions. Again, piecewise functions are pieces of individual functions that are cut and pasted together without overlapping. I'm going to be doing two examples on here, and I will be using my calculator to be able to graph things. We have three equations, but we have restrictions on here. So when we graph our equations, when we graph our lines or parabolas, then we have to honor the restrictions so that we don't overlap anything that does not need to be overlapped. So the first one I'm actually going to graph in green. Then I will graph the second one in pink. And then I will graph the last one in a blue. So I'm going to use my calculator to graph these, but focus on the restriction of it. So in my calculator, I'm going to go to my y equals. I'm going to type in my first one is -2. But I'm not going to actually look at the graph. I need to go to my table to just get coordinates. So go to second graph, I go to my table. The first x value I'm allowed to start with is that -5. So I need to scroll to that -5. And I want all of the x values that are smaller than -5. So this -5, I want that to be my largest x value. So if I keep going up, then those keep getting smaller. So I want -5 to be down here at the bottom. That means that everything above it, because it's all smaller than -5, I'm allowed to graph those. Now, because it says less than or equal to, that means I can have a solid point at this first coordinate. So -5, -2 is my first coordinate. -5, -2. And then we want all of the coordinates that are smaller than that. So that's -6, -2. -7, -2. All of these are possible. So this is a horizontal line starting at that -5. This is our first one. In pink, I'm going to go back and type in, instead of -2, I'm going to type in that x plus 5. But in my table, I need to check my restriction. My first one I can go to is -3, but it has to stop at +3. So I'm going to go to my -3. So here's my first coordinate. But I can have all the coordinates between -3 for the x until the +3 of the x. So I can actually graph all of these coordinates in pink because I have to start at -3, but I will have to stop at +3. So -3, 2, I'm allowed to graph. And at the x of -3, it's solid. So that -3, +2 is going to be solid. The next one, -2, +3. -1, +4. 0, 5. 1, 6. 2, 7. But then the last one I'm allowed to graph, that 3, 8, it has to be open. So 3, 8 has to be an open circle here. So I can connect these coordinates in pink. The last one, I'm going to go to my y equals and type in as parentheses x minus 5 parentheses squared plus 1. And again, I'm going to look at my table. So I'm going to go to my second graph, look at my table. The first x value I can look at is the 3, so that's down here. I want this 3 to actually be the highest one I can go to, the highest one on my table, because I want all the numbers that are also larger than 3. So I'm going to scroll until the 3 is up at the top. So 3 is at the top. I can graph all of these coordinates that I see here. So the first coordinate has to be an open coordinate though. So it's 3, 5 is open coordinate. So 3, 5 is an open coordinate. The next one we can graph is 4, 2, which all of these will now be closed because it can hit them. Then we want 5, 1, 6, 2, 7, 5, and then we can also graph 8, 10, and that's the last one I can graph without going off of the graph. So I'm going to connect these. It's a parabola. And we have just graphed our piecewise. These are the pieces of our equations with regards to our restrictions. So now we do our domain and range. So domain. We do have an arrow pointing left, and we do have an arrow pointing right. So we know we're going to have a negative infinity and a positive infinity. But we do have multiple parts to it, so we got to check for gaps. So we know we're going to start with that negative infinity from this green arrow. So I'm going to keep going to the right, 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 stop. Now I can't go to the right unless I have something else that I can jump to up or down. So if I go up or down, there's nothing solid that I can jump to. That means that it actually stops here. So I'm going to have a gap. So I'm going to stop at that -5 for the x value, close bracket. Union. Now I'm going to start somewhere else. So the next spot that I can start at is this coordinate, which is at a -3 for the x value. So I can actually start it at -3, and it is solid. Now I need to know where I can go next. So I'm going to go to the right, 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 stop. It's open, so it's not solid here. So I need to look up and down if there's anything solid. There is nothing solid because this circle is open as well. So both of these are open, so it doesn't actually hit at that +3. So we have to stop it at that +3 with an open bracket. But then I can start over. So I have another union. So I know I can't continue with the pink, but I can jump to that blue so I could keep going to the right. But that blue is still open at the 3, so I have to start it open at the 3 again. And I'm going to keep going to the right, 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 stop. So, well, not stop because it's an arrow, so that's a positive infinity. So that would keep going to the right. So this is our domain. We actually have 2 unions in here because we have 2 gaps in between our x values. So the x values between bigger than -5, but smaller than -3 are not being touched, and the x value of just 3 is not being touched. So with regards to our range, this is your smallest y value. This arrow is not pointing down, so we do not have a negative infinity. But we do have an arrow pointing up, so we will have a positive infinity. So our first value is actually down at that -2, so it's going to have -2. And then, well, at this entire thing, all of these are -2, but there's nothing up. So I need to look, all of these are still at the same location. I need to see if there's another piece of the graph over here, and there's not. So there's nothing else I can go to from here, so I'm going to stop at that -2. Then I have to figure out where to start back over. So union, the next y value we can come to is here. This is your next lowest. And then we need to keep going up. So I can actually keep going up towards the right, towards that arrow, and I keep going. So I'll hit the infinity. So that started back over at that 1 with a closed bracket, and it's going to keep going on to that positive infinity with the open bracket. So our range, it's at -2. It's at -2, nothing below it, not above it. But then it starts back over at that +1, and then it'll keep going up. On this next example, again, I'm going to use green, pink, and blue. So green, pink, and blue. I'm going to again use my calculator. So for the green, I'm going to go to my calculator, and go to y equals and clear this out. I'm going to type in 3x plus 12. I'm going to go to my table, and the first value I can start at is that x value of -3. So my -3 is the first one I can start at. I'm going to go ahead and graph that coordinate because it can be solid. So I'm going to have a solid coordinate at -3, +3. So -3, +3, solid coordinate. We want everything smaller than -3, so my next coordinate would be at -4, and -4 is 0. The next coordinate I want smaller would be at -5, -3. And it looks like there's a pattern that's down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1, so I'll do the same thing. Down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1. And let's just check that. Next one is at -6, -6, -7, -9. So that was good. And we wanted all of those, so we're just going to connect from here down. So this is our green. For the pink, go to my y equals, clear it out. I'm going to type in the absolute value of x. So I need to go to my math button, go to number, and get the absolute value part. I'm just going to type in x. So again, I'm going to go to my table. I'm going from -3 to +3. So I need my -3. It has to be my first one. So I'm going to scroll so the -3 is my top, and then +3 is my last one. Now, both of these beginning and ending coordinates have to be open. So -3, +3 has to be open. -3 to +3. I'm actually putting an open circle, and it actually hits that green, but it's going to be an open circle there for the pink. Then my +3 will also be an open circle. So +3, +3. So these are just my start and end. I can do -2, +2, -1, +1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then that was my stopping point. So I can connect these. Absolute value. And now for the blue, I'm going to type in, clear that out, -3x plus 12. Go to the table. My first x value can be at that +3, so down here. So 3, 3, and I can make it solid. So I'm going to put a solid blue dot at that 3, 3, which happened to be the same location where that open pink was, which is fine. That's why the pink is open and the blue is solid. I don't have two different solid colors here, so that's good. And we want all the numbers that are bigger than 3. So this 3 should be at the very top, because that should be my smallest number. So 3, 3, and then we'll have 4, 0, 5, -3. So again, it looks like we're going down 3, but right 1 this time. So down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1. So we have 6, -6, 7, -9, so we have that. Connect these, and it keeps going. So this is our piecewise. We have our green, our pink, and our blue. So first, second, third. Domain. This arrow is pointing to the left. This arrow is pointing to the right. So we do have -infinity and +infinity. So as we go to the right from this arrow to the other one, right to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, the green was solid, but I can't go any more green, but I can keep going to the right on the pink, and it's still solid. So I'm still good. So pink, right, 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 stop. The pink was open, but now the blue is on that same spot, and it is solid. So then I can keep going to the right on the blue, and I'll hit the arrow. So our domain is -infinity to +infinity, because it actually I never have to break, because the solid was also with an open part. So it never overlapped. It's still a function. For the range, both of these are pointing down, so it's definitely a -infinity. And then if I keep the highest point is either one of these, and on this green, I could go up, and the green is still solid there. So either way, I have that coordinate there. I don't need to go up any further, because that's as far as I can go. So that is a +3, and it will be solid. So that is our domain and range for that example.